Captain Jack Murphy of the human interstellar vessel The Last Call was having what medical professionals across 17 star systems would unanimously diagnose as a rough morning. His mouth tasted like something had crawled in there and died, twice. His brain seemed to be attempting an unauthorized evacuation through his eye sockets. And the ship's artificial gravity seemed to be malfunctioning in a way that made the floor tilt at precisely the angle needed to maximize his nausea. Captain? Incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha. The ship's AI, affectionately named Barkeep, had been programmed with what Murphy considered an unnecessarily cheerful morning voice. Mute by 60%, Murphy groaned, fumbling for the sunglasses he kept in his uniform pocket specifically for occasions like this. And dim the lights. For the love of all that's holy, dim the lights. Lights at 40%. Incoming transmission in 3, 2. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Hernandez's perpetually disappointed face. Murphy straightened as much as his protesting spine would allow. Captain Murphy, the Admiral began, her voice suggesting she was addressing something she'd found on the bottom of her boot. I trust I'm not interrupting anything important? Murphy glanced around the bridge of The Last Call. His executive officer, Commander Diana Park, was openly applying hangover patches to her temples. His security chief, Lieutenant Valerie Knuckles Rodriguez, was wearing sunglasses indoors and clutching a coffee mug like it contained the elixir of eternal life. Chief Engineer Dexter Numbers Thompson was slumped over his console, softly mumbling equations in his sleep. Communications Officer Liam O'Reilly was present only as a sticky note on his chair reading back in 5, bathroom emergency. No ma'am, Murphy replied with all the dignity he could muster. Just routine ship operations. Fantastic, the Admiral said, in a tone suggesting it was anything but. Because the Galactic Council has just informed us that the Voldarians have formally challenged humanity to a series of competitive trials to determine species superiority. Murphy blinked. The who have done what now? The Voldarians. Highly advanced civilization. Been observing us since we achieved FTL travel. Apparently they've decided we're expanding too quickly and are. She checked her notes, disrupting the established galactic harmony with our chaotic and undisciplined approach to interstellar relations. Well, that's just rude. They've invoked an ancient protocol within the Galactic Charter. As signatories, we're obligated to participate or forfeit our rights to further expansion. Murphy fought the urge to groan. This was exactly why he'd chosen a deep space patrol assignment. Politics gave him a headache worse than Regellian rum. And let me guess, he said. We're the closest human ship to the Galactic Council headquarters. Exactly. You're to represent humanity in these trials, Captain. The Council has transmitted the coordinates. You'll rendezvous us with the Voldarian delegation in 12 hours. 12 hours? Admiral, with all due respect, my crew just came off a 72-hour shore leave on Nova Vegas. We're not exactly in peak diplomatic condition. The Admiral's expression didn't change, but Murphy could have sworn he saw the ghost of a smile flicker across her face. Then I suggest you find some stimulants and pull it together, Captain. The fate of human expansion depends on it. Hernandez out. The transmission cut off. Murphy looked around at his semi-conscious bridge crew. Well, team, looks like we've got a situation. Did she say Voldarians? Commander Park asked, wincing as the hangover patch kicked in with a vengeance. Aren't those the stuck-up ones with the mathematical obsession and weird head ridges? And purple skin, Thompson added, apparently awake after all. Don't forget the purple skin. Murphy sighed and rubbed his temples. Barkeep, ship-wide announcement, please. Ready when you are, Captain. Attention crew of The Last Call. Due to what I can only assume is the universe's twisted sense of humor, we have been selected to represent all of humanity in a series of competitive trials against an advanced alien civilization. These trials begin in 12 hours. So finish throwing up, hydrate, and report to duty stations. We've got a species to save. Murphy out. As the announcement ended, O'Reilly finally stumbled onto the bridge, his uniform askew. Did I miss anything, Captain? Murphy looked at his rumpled communications officer and shook his head. Nothing important, Liam. Just the potential end of human interstellar expansion as we know it. Oh, O'Reilly nodded sagely. So a normal Tuesday then? The Galactic Council headquarters was an architectural marvel that reminded Murphy of what might happen if you gave a squid unlimited resources and a degree in postmodern design. Sweeping tentacle, like structures of iridescent material curved around a central sphere, all suspended in a carefully maintained orbit around a neutron star. Compensating for something, aren't they? Knuckles muttered as they approached in the ship's shuttle. Remember, Murphy said, ignoring the comment and addressing his hastily assembled diplomatic team, we're representing all of humanity here. So try to act, evolved. Evolved. Right. Numbers straightened his uniform jacket, which looked like it had been slept in. Because it had been. No problem, Captain. I'll keep the math jokes to a minimum. The shuttle docked with a soft hiss, and the team stepped into the reception area. They were immediately greeted by a towering blue-skinned official with 4 arms and an expression of thinly veiled contempt. Welcome, humans, the being said, its translator rendering the words in perfect English despite its mouth moving in entirely different patterns. I am Counselor Zet Vex of the Aquilian Confederation. I will escort you to the challenge chamber. Much appreciated, Counselor, Murphy replied with a smile that he hoped conveyed diplomatic gravitas rather than still slightly hungover. We're honored to be here. The counselor made a sound that the translator didn't bother with, but Murphy was pretty sure translated roughly to sure you are. They were led through a series of increasingly grandiose hallways, passing representatives of dozens of species. Murphy noticed that many of them were looking at the human delegation with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright amusement. Is it just me? Park whispered. Or do they all look like they know something we don't? Standard diplomatic environment, O'Reilly replied. Everyone always thinks they know something you don't. It's like a galactic poker game. The challenge chamber turned out to be a massive amphitheater, with seating arranged in concentric rings around a central platform. The seats were filled with representatives from what must have been hundreds of different species. At the highest tier sat a panel of 7 beings, each from a different race, whom Murphy assumed must be the council proper. And waiting on the central platform was a delegation of tall, slender aliens with rich purple skin and elaborate ridged foreheads. They wore what looked like a cross between formal robes and mathematical equations, the fabric shimmering with constantly changing symbols. The Voldarians, I presume, Murphy muttered. Captain Murphy of Earth, the lead Voldarian said, stepping forward. I am High Theorist E. Xandor of the Voldarian Concordance. We have been studying your species for some time. Hope we've been entertaining, Murphy replied. Entertaining is one word for it. Concerning would be another. Xandor gestured elegantly with long, 6-fingered hands. Your species has achieved faster than light travel despite still engaging in territorial conflicts among yourselves. You consume intoxicants for pleasure. You make decisions based on emotional impulses rather than logical calculations. And yet somehow you continue to not only survive but expand. We're full of surprises, Murphy said. It's kind of our thing. Indeed, which is why we have invoked the ancient challenge. It is our right as elder members of the galactic community to test new species who display concerning traits. One of the council members, a floating crystalline entity, chimed in with voice like breaking glass. The challenge has been properly invoked according to Section 7, Paragraph 12 of the Charter, which Earth signed upon achieving interstellar status. Murphy made a mental note to have a long talk with Earth's diplomatic corps about reading the fine print. The challenge consists of 3 trials, Xandor continued. Strategy and intellect, physical prowess, and diplomatic acumen. We will each select our champions for each trial. The species that wins the majority shall be declared superior. And if we lose? Murphy asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Then humanity will be restricted to your home solar system for the next 1,000 years, until you have matured. A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Murphy noticed more than a few were placing what appeared to be bets. And if we win? He asked. Xandor's expression suggested he found the question amusing. Then you will be acknowledged as equals and permitted to continue your expansion, with full trading rights among all concordance worlds. Well then, Murphy said, extending his hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of agreement. Hang on. Xandor looked at the offered hand with mild disgust before reluctantly extending his own. The first trial begins in 1 hour. I suggest you prepare yourselves, though I doubt it will help. As the Voldarian delegation moved away, Murphy turned to his team. So, O'Reilly said, they basically challenged us to an intergalactic pissing contest. That about sums it up, Murphy agreed. And somehow we're humanity's chosen representatives. Numbers looked thoughtful. Captain, do you think Earth Command knew what they were doing when they sent us? Murphy thought about Admiral Hernandez's almost smile. You know what, Numbers? I'm starting to wonder about that myself. The first trial was held in what the Galactic Council called the Chamber of Cognitive Confrontation, but which Murphy privately thought of as space chess on steroids. A three-dimensional playing field hovered in the center of the room, filled with holographic terrain representing various planetary types. Tiny holographic ships and units waited to be deployed. The trial of strategy and intellect, announced a multi-limbed adjudicator, is a test of tactical reasoning, resource management, and predictive analysis. Each side will command a simulated fleet with the objective of capturing their opponent's homeworld while defending their own. Xandor stepped forward, accompanied by a Voldarian whose head ridges were so pronounced they almost resembled a crown. I present our champion for this trial, Grand Theorist Vex Moore, undefeated master of the 17 dimensions of thought, holder of 9 advanced degrees in quantum probability, second designer of the defensive algorithms that protect our homeworld. The assembled aliens applauded respectfully. Vex Moore bowed slightly, radiating smug confidence. And who will represent humanity? The adjudicator asked. Murphy looked at his team. This was clearly a job for Numbers. The engineer might look like he'd just rolled out of bed after a 3-day bender, which, to be fair, he had, but he had the most incredible mathematical mind Murphy had ever encountered. We select Chief Engineer Dexter Thompson, Murphy announced. Numbers stepped forward, still squinting slightly under the bright lights of the chamber. A few aliens in the audience actually laughed. This is your intellectual champion? Vex Moore asked, not bothering to hide his disdain. This specimen appears to be suffering from some form of neurological impairment. It's called a hangover, Numbers replied cheerfully. And you'd better hope your fancy degrees included a course on unpredictability, because that's about to become very relevant to your day. The adjudicator gestured them both to control stations on opposite sides of the holographic battlefield. You will each have 5 minutes to review the rules and deploy your initial forces. Then the simulation will begin. Numbers studied the controls, occasionally mumbling to himself. Murphy watched nervously as Vex Moore confidently arranged his forces in what even Murphy could recognize as a textbook perfect defensive formation. How's it looking? Murphy asked quietly, moving to stand beside his engineer. Numbers didn't look up from the controls. Their guy has clearly played this before. The rule set is complex but has exploitable edge cases. Don't worry, Captain. I spent 3 years in college developing algorithms for games way more complicated than this. I thought you majored in engineering? I did. This was for fun. Numbers finally looked up with a grin. Also, the interface is almost identical to Galactic Overlord VE, which I still hold the Earth record for. Small universe, huh? The adjudicator announced the end of the preparation phase, and the simulation began. What followed was 45 minutes of the most bizarre, strategic gameplay Murphy had ever witnessed. While Vex Moore employed classical formations and textbook maneuvers, Numbers played like Numbers. He split his fleet into seemingly random groupings. He sacrificed valuable units for no apparent gain. He left his homeworld defended by a single ship at one point, causing gasps from the audience. What in the name of Earth's 7 sorry excuses for C's are you doing? Murphy hissed after a particularly reckless maneuver. Creating chaos, Numbers replied without looking up. His whole strategy depends on predicting my moves. So I'm making moves that make no sense. That's your grand strategy? Acting insane? Insanity is just genius that forgot to show its work, Captain. Numbers made another bewildering move. Besides, I'm not being random. I'm setting up for the Kobayashi Gambit. The what? Min. From Galactic Overlord VI. It's considered cheap by serious players, but it's not technically against the rules. On the battlefield, Vex Moore's perfectly arranged forces were starting to show signs of confusion. His formations, designed to counter rational strategies, were finding themselves outflanked by Numbers' apparent madness. And then, just as Murphy was beginning to think Numbers might actually have a plan after all, the engineer did something truly inexplicable. He sent his flagship, the most powerful unit in his arsenal, on what appeared to be a suicide run directly at Vex Moore's homeworld. The audience gasped. Vex Moore actually smiled, clearly believing victory was at hand. Numbers, what the hell, Murphy began. Wait for it, Numbers interrupted, fingers flying over the controls. The flagship approached Vex Moore's homeworld, drawing every defensive unit toward it like moths to a flame. And just as it was about to be obliterated, it vanished and reappeared behind Vex Moore's defensive line, along with 3 previously cloaked attack ships that Numbers had positioned turns ago. That's not possible. Vex Moore sputtered. The quantum tunneling technology in this simulation has a cooldown period of 7 turns. Unless, Numbers said with a grin, you've been secretly building up a quantum resonance field using the energy released from all those ships I seemingly sacrificed for no reason. The rulebook calls it energy dissipation, but it's actually stored in a buffer that can be accessed if you know the right command sequence. That's an exploit. Vex Moore protested. That's creative problem solving, Numbers countered, and totally within the rules as written. While Vex Moore was still reeling, Numbers' ships unleashed their payload on the now defenseless homeworld. The holographic planet flickered and went dark. Simulation complete, the adjudicator announced. Human victory. The chamber erupted in a mixture of shocked exclamations, arguments, and what sounded suspiciously like the exchange of betting currency. Xandor looked like he had just swallowed something extremely unpleasant. This is outrageous. Your champion used an unintended feature of the simulation. Your rules, your game, Murphy replied with a shrug. Not our fault if your grand theorist couldn't think outside the box. Numbers rejoined the human team, looking rather pleased with himself. That was fun. Do they have any other games around here? Murphy clapped him on the back. Save some energy for celebrating later. We've still got 2 more trials to go. As they left the chamber, Murphy couldn't help noticing that the looks they were receiving from the assembled aliens had changed. There was still amusement there, but now mixed with something new. Curiosity. The trial of physical prowess, the adjudicator announced, will test strength, speed, agility, and combat skills. Each side will select one champion to face the other in unarmed combat within the circle of dominance. The human team stood in what appeared to be a combination of a gladiatorial arena and a high-tech gymnasium. The circle of dominance was a 30-foot diameter ring in the center, surrounded by a containment field that shimmered faintly in the light. Xandor stepped forward with a Voldarian who made the others look positively scrawny by comparison. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with shoulders like a bulldozer, the purple-skinned warrior's muscles had muscles. Even his head ridges seemed more pronounced, giving him the appearance of wearing a natural crown of bone. I present war theorist Kravzor, graduate of 17 combat disciplines, veteran of the Antarian conflict, and holder of the galactic record for consecutive ritual combat victories. Kravzor stepped into the circle and performed a series of movements that were somewhere between a martial arts kata and a ballet. Despite his size, he moved with fluid grace that suggested he was just as fast as he was strong. The demonstration ended with a punch that created an actual shockwave in the air. The alien audience applauded appreciatively. The human team exchanged glances. Well, Murphy said quietly, I think we know who's up for this one. All eyes turned to Lieutenant Valerie Knuckles Rodriguez. The security chief was still wearing her sunglasses indoors, but she'd at least graduated from coffee to a protein shake that Murphy strongly suspected contained a medicinal amount of alcohol. "Knuckles," Murphy said, "you're our best fighter. Think you can take this guy?" She took a long sip of her shake, looked Krav Zor up and down, and shrugged. "He's big. Big means slow. Slow means dead." She handed her shake to O'Reilly. "Hold my breakfast." "I present Lieutenant Valerie Rodriguez," Murphy announced, graduate of the Earth Defense Force Combat Training Program, veteran of the Proxima Centauri Pirate Suppression Campaign, and three-time champion of the EDF's Unsanctioned Fight Night. This last credential wasn't strictly official, but Murphy figured what the Galactic Council didn't know wouldn't hurt them. Knuckles stepped into the circle, removed her sunglasses, and handed them to Numbers. Then she started stretching in a desultory fashion that suggested she was preparing for a light jog rather than combat with an alien twice her size. The assembled aliens watched with expressions ranging from confusion to what Murphy was pretty sure was the alien equivalent of placing bets against her. "The rules are simple," the adjudicator explained. "The first combatant to render their opponent unconscious, force them out of the circle, or compel them to surrender, is the winner. Lethal force is forbidden." Krav Zor performed what appeared to be a ritual salute. Knuckles responded by cracking her neck and knuckles in sequence, the sound unnervingly loud in the quiet arena. "Again," the adjudicator commanded. Krav Zor immediately launched into a flurry of precise, powerful strikes. His technique was flawless, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. It was like watching a living weapon in action. There was just one problem. None of his strikes were landing. Knuckles moved with an economy of motion that was the polar opposite of her opponent's flashy style. She didn't counterattack, she simply wasn't where his attacks were aimed. A slight lean here, a half step there, a casual duck or sidestep. It looked less like trained combat evasion, and more like someone casually avoiding getting jostled in a crowded bar. "Is your champion going to fight?" Xandor demanded after a full minute of this. "Or merely avoid combat?" "She's assessing," Murphy replied, though privately he was wondering the same thing. Krav Zor, clearly frustrated by his inability to land a blow, changed tactics. He launched into a spinning kick that should have been impossible for someone his size, aiming directly at Knuckles' head. This time she didn't dodge. She caught his leg. There was a moment of perfect stillness as both combatants and audience processed what had just happened. Then Knuckles grinned an expression that had made hardened space pirates reconsider their life choices and spoke her first words since entering the circle. "My turn." What followed was not so much a fight as a demonstration of why Knuckles had earned her nickname. She didn't use any recognizable martial arts style. Instead, she fought like someone who had learned combat in the School of Hard Knocks specifically, in the dimly lit back rooms of spaceport bars where the only rule was survival. Elbow strikes to joints not designed to bend that way. Fingers applied with surgical precision to nerve clusters. A headbutt that made even Murphy wince. And yes, Knuckles delivered with devastating effect to sensitive areas of Voldarian anatomy. It was messy, it was brutal, and it was undeniably effective. After a particularly vicious combination that included what appeared to be a move borrowed from Earth professional wrestling, Krav Zor hit the ground hard. He attempted to rise, wobbled, and collapsed again. Victory to the human champion. The adjudicator announced, sounding slightly shocked. The arena was dead silent for a moment, then erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Money, or its equivalent, was changing hands at a furious rate. Knuckles sauntered back to the human team, reclaiming her sunglasses from Numbers and her shake from O'Reilly. "Not bad," Murphy said. "Where'd you learn to fight like that?" "Told you before, Captain. 6 older brothers, and a misspent youth in the orbital habitats around Mars." She took a sip of her shake. "Also, I may have spent our shore leave participating in some unauthorized fighting competitions on Nova Vegas." "Of course you did," Murphy sighed. Well, whatever works. That's 2 trials down in our favor. Across the arena, Xandor was helping the dazed Kravzor to his feet, his expression a mixture of disbelief and growing concern. When he caught Murphy looking his way, his features hardened into determination. "One more trial," O'Reilly said. "Think they'll make it harder now that they're desperate?" "Oh, absolutely," Murphy replied. "And the last one's diplomacy. That's definitely not our strong suit." "Speak for yourself," Captain O'Reilly said with a grin. "I'll have you know I talked my way out of 3 different romantic entanglements during shore leave without anyone trying to kill me." "Truly, you are the pinnacle of human diplomatic achievement," Murphy said dryly. "Come on, team. Let's see what they've got planned for the finale." The final trial took place in a setting that reminded Murphy of a cross between a high-end corporate boardroom and a nightclub. A circular table dominated the center of the softly lit room, surrounded by comfortable seating adjusted for various physiologies. Ambient music played just below the threshold of conscious attention, and the air was perfumed with a scent that Murphy found simultaneously pleasing and slightly disorienting. "Welcome to the trial of diplomatic acumen," said a new adjudicator, this one resembling a bioluminescent jellyfish floating in a specialized containment suit. "This challenge will test your ability to negotiate, persuade, and navigate complex social and political situations." Xandor approached, accompanied by a Voldarian whose purple skin had a subtle iridescent quality. This one was shorter than the others, with more delicate features and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "I present diplomatic theorist Zelvina, trained in 12,000 cultural protocols, fluent in 417 languages, and chief negotiator of the Voldarian Concordance. She has successfully mediated 73 interstellar conflicts without a single concession to violence." Zelvina bowed, her movements elegant and precise. "I look forward to a stimulating exchange," she said, her translator rendering her words in flawless, aristocratic-sounding English. Murphy stepped forward. "For humanity's representative, I select myself, Captain Jack Murphy, along with our communications officer, Lieutenant Liam O'Reilly." He'd chosen O'Reilly as backup because the man had an uncanny ability to read people and apparently aliens as well. It was what made him an exceptional communications officer, despite his other eccentricities. "2 representatives?" Xandor questioned. "The rules permit only 1. Actually, the jellyfish adjudicator interjected, its bioluminescence pulsing in what Murphy interpreted as mild embarrassment. "The rules specify 1 primary negotiator, but assistants are permitted if declared in advance." "Then I too shall have an assistant," Zelvina said smoothly. She gestured, and a smaller Voldarian stepped forward, carrying what appeared to be a complex data terminal. Of course, the adjudicator agreed. "Agrees, and now, the parameters of this trial are as follows. You will engage in negotiations over the theoretical distribution of resources in a newly discovered star system. Your goal is to secure the best outcome for your species while maintaining peaceful relations. You will be judged on effectiveness, ethical considerations, and creative problem-solving." Murphy and O'Reilly exchanged glances. This sounded suspiciously straightforward. "There must be a catch," O'Reilly muttered. "Each party will be provided with specific information about their needs and resources," the adjudicator continued. "Some information will be shared, some will be private. You have 1 hour to reach an agreement, starting now." Data tablets appeared on the table. Murphy picked one up and began reviewing the scenario. The newly discovered system contained 7 planets, each with different resources ranging from rare minerals to habitable environments. According to their brief, humanity needed specific rare elements for their FTL drive technology, as well as new habitable worlds for expansion. "So far, so good," Murphy said quietly to O'Reilly. "What do you think they need?" O'Reilly was studying Zelvina with narrowed eyes. "That's interesting. Her assistant keeps feeding her data, but she's barely glancing at it. I think it's for show. And notice how she's positioned herself. She can see the reflection of our tablets in that shiny surface behind us." Murphy resisted the urge to turn around. "She's spying on our information?" "Almost certainly." So much for the ethical consideration part of the judging criteria. O'Reilly grinned. Unless that's part of the test. Maybe we're supposed to catch them cheating. Murphy considered this. Or maybe we're all expected to cheat, and the test is how well we do it. He tapped his tablet thoughtfully. Let's find out. He deliberately tilted his tablet so it would be easier to see in reflection and navigated to a particularly valuable-looking planet rich in rare materials. Then he turned to O'Reilly and winked. Lieutenant, make a note that we absolutely must secure Planet 4 at all costs. Our FTL program depends on those specific heavy elements. O'Reilly, catching on immediately, nodded seriously. Yes, Captain. Without those elements, our entire expansion strategy will collapse. Murphy noted with satisfaction that Zelvina's assistant was subtly indicating something to her. The trap was baited. The negotiations began formally, with Zelvina demonstrating why she was considered a master diplomat. Her proposals were reasonable, her manner conciliatory, and her logic impeccable. If Murphy hadn't known she was working from stolen information, he would have been genuinely impressed. As he'd expected, the Voldarian proposal graciously conceded Planet 4 to humanity, while securing what appeared to be less valuable worlds for themselves. That's very generous, Murphy said, pretending to be surprised by the offer. But I'm curious, why would you not want access to Planet 4? Our surveys indicate substantial deposits of rare elements there. Our technology paths differ, Zelvina replied smoothly. Those particular elements are of limited use to Voldarian science. I see. Murphy nodded, maintaining a carefully neutral expression. Well, in that case, we accept your proposal for Planet 4. However, we'd like to discuss the terms for Planet 6. The negotiations continued, with Murphy and O'Reilly gradually steering the conversation toward their actual goal, Planet 2, which according to their real briefing contained the elements truly critical for human FTL development. All the while they maintained the fiction that Planet 4 was their primary objective. An hour later, the final agreement was reached. Humanity would receive primary rights to Planets 2, 4, and 7, while the Voldarians would get Planets 1, 3, 5, and 6. On paper, it appeared that the Voldarians had secured the majority of the system. A reasonable compromise, Zelvina declared, looking quietly satisfied. We can live with it, Murphy agreed, doing his best to look like someone trying to hide disappointment. The jellyfish adjudicator pulsed with what might have been approval. The negotiations are concluded. Please wait while the Council evaluates the outcome. There was a brief recess during which Murphy and O'Reilly rejoined the rest of their team. So? Numbers asked. How'd it go? They cheated, we counter-cheated. Everyone got what they wanted while pretending they didn't, O'Reilly summarized. Standard diplomatic procedure, really. But did we win? Commander Park pressed. Murphy shrugged. Hard to say. We got what we actually needed while making them think they outmaneuvered us. But they're judging on effectiveness, ethics, and creativity. Ethics might be a problem, Knuckles pointed out, considering the whole mutual deception thing. Maybe, Murphy conceded. But I have a feeling that was part of the test. Before they could speculate further, they were called back. The full Galactic Council was now present, along with what seemed like an even larger audience than before. The Crystalline Council member spoke first. We have reviewed the negotiations and reached a decision. Both parties demonstrated skill and advocacy for their respective species. However, there can be only one winner. Murphy held his breath. In the matter of ethics, both parties engaged in deception. The Voldarian delegation attempted to gain advantage through surveillance. The human delegation deliberately planted false information. Xandor looked sharply at Zelvina, who had the good grace to look embarrassed. In the matter of effectiveness, both parties secured valuable resources for their species. Murphy and Zelvina exchanged glances, each recognizing they'd been playing the same game from opposite sides. However, in the matter of creative problem-solving, the council member continued, we must acknowledge the human approach. Rather than confronting the ethical breach directly, they used it to their advantage while still achieving their goals. Furthermore, Captain Murphy's strategic use of what humans call reverse psychology demonstrated an unexpected dimension to diplomatic negotiations. Xandor's expression was thunderous. "This is absurd. They deceived and manipulated." "As did your representative," another council member pointed out. "The difference is that they anticipated your deception and countered it preemptively. That shows greater understanding of the diplomatic process." "The trial is decided," the crystalline being declared. "Victory goes to humanity." And just like that, it was over. 3 trials, 3 victories. As they left the chamber, Murphy found himself walking alongside Zelvina. "A creative approach, Captain," she said, sounding genuinely impressed rather than bitter. "I should have recognized the trap." "If it makes you feel any better," Murphy replied, "we were pretty sure you were cheating because it's exactly what we would have done in your position." She made a sound that might have been laughter. "Perhaps our species are not so different after all." The final assembly of the Galactic Council was a considerably more elaborate affair than the previous sessions. The chamber was packed with representatives from countless species, the air buzzing with conversation in dozens of languages. Murphy and his crew had been given time to clean up and rest, which meant they actually looked like proper representatives of humanity for once. They stood at attention as the council members took their places. "The ancient challenge has been completed," the crystalline council member announced, its voice resonating through the chamber. "The results are clear. In all 3 trials, strategy and intellect, physical prowess and diplomatic acumen, the human delegation has proven victorious." A mix of reactions swept through the audience: surprise, amusement, and what Murphy could only interpret as the galactic equivalent of grudging respect. "Therefore, in accordance with the traditions of the Galactic Charter, we hereby recognize humanity as equals within the cosmic community. All restrictions on human expansion are lifted, and full trading rights with all concordance worlds are granted." Xandor stepped forward, his expression carefully controlled. "The Voldarian Concordance acknowledges the outcome of the challenge and will honor the Council's decision." His mandibles clicked in what Lieutenant Chen had come to recognize as restraint. "Though I maintain that these humans have succeeded through unconventional means." Murphy couldn't help but grin. "We prefer the term creative problem-solving." A ripple of translator-delayed laughter spread through the chamber. Even the crystalline council members' facets seemed to shimmer in amusement. Dr. Patel cleared her throat. "If I may address the council?" The lead council member gestured with a crystalline appendage. "The humans have earned the right to speak." "While we appreciate the recognition of our species," Dr. Patel began, "we must address the underlying reason for these trials. The challenge was designed to test if we're sufficiently advanced to join your community. But during our time here, we've observed something concerning." Murphy shot her a warning glance, but she continued. "Many of your younger species are held to standards that even the founding members would struggle to meet today. This creates a hierarchy that contradicts the very principles of equality this council claims to uphold." A tense silence fell over the chamber. "The human speaks truth," came a rumbling voice from the back. A massive entity composed of what appeared to be living stone lumbered forward. "The Tholians have observed this pattern for 3 millennia, yet lack the diplomatic standing to address it." Xandor's posture stiffened. "This is outrageous. The challenge has stood for eons." "And perhaps that is precisely the problem," interrupted a willowy being with bioluminescent tendrils. "Our traditions have remained unchanged while the galaxy has evolved." The crystalline council member raised its appendages for silence. "The humans have not only passed the challenge but have exposed a flaw in our governance. This merits reflection." Murphy exchanged glances with his crew. This wasn't what they had expected. "Captain Murphy," the council member addressed him directly, "would humanity be willing to participate in a reformation committee? Your species' perspective might prove valuable." Before Murphy could respond, a deafening alarm blared through the chamber. Holographic displays materialized. showing a massive vessel dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. "Erasure protocol initiated," announced an automated voice. "Cleansing vessel Eternal Night has arrived." Panic erupted among the delegates. The crystalline being's voice cut through the chaos. "The precursors. They've detected the anomalous results of the challenge." "Who are the precursors?" Lieutenant Chen demanded, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Xandor, all previous animosity forgotten, moved closer to the humans, the architects of the challenge. They established the trials eons ago and occasionally return to correct deviations from their design. "Correction?" Dr. Patel asked. "Extinction," Xandor replied grimly. "They eliminate species that threaten the established order. No civilization has successfully resisted them." Murphy looked at his crew, then at the council members who now regarded them with something new in their alien expressions: hope. "Well," Murphy said, straightening his uniform, "humanity does have a certain knack for beating impossible odds. I think it's time for challenge number 4. The massive view screen showed the precursor vessel advancing toward the station, its hull seemingly absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Council members," Murphy announced, his voice steady, "I believe this is what humans call thinking outside the box. If you'll trust us one more time, I suggest we form an alliance immediately." Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she realized his plan. "You're not proposing we fight them?" "That's exactly what I'm proposing," Murphy confirmed. "Not just us, all of us. The first truly unified action of the Galactic Council." The crystalline council members' facets pulsed rapidly. "In 10,000 years, no species has challenged the precursors." Murphy smiled. "Then they've never faced humans working together with the finest minds in the galaxy. We've passed 3 impossible trials already. What's one more?" As alarms continued to blare, the council chamber transformed into an impromptu war room. Species that had been adversaries moments before now huddled together, sharing military knowledge and tactical insights. And at the center of it all stood Captain Murphy, and his crew, humanity's unlikely ambassadors about to lead the galaxy into its greatest challenge yet.